Something made you pause on this video. Maybe you tell yourself it was nothing, just a thumbnail, just a title, just the algorithm. But you have had enough unexplainable moments in your life to know that sometimes the things you dismiss as nothing are exactly the things that were meant for you. So before you scroll, give this 30 seconds. Because Archangel Michael has a message that was not prepared for everyone. It was prepared for the person who has been carrying something heavy in silence. The person who has been patient long past the point where patience made any practical sense. The person who prays and waits and tries to trust and then gets up the next morning and does it all again, even when nothing around them has changed yet. If that is you, stay with this. If something in your chest already moved when I said that, that is not coincidence. That is recognition. Your spirit recognizes a word that was written with your name on it before this video ever began playing. Comment the word "ready" below if you feel this message was meant for you, and then keep reading, because what comes next is going to require your full attention. Let me speak honestly for a moment. You have not had an easy road. Not in the ways that make for a clean story, the edited montage of hardship and triumph, where the suffering is compressed into a few dramatic scenes and the breakthrough arrives on schedule. Your road has been slower than that. Quieter. The kind of hard that does not get acknowledged because it does not look like crisis from the outside. You kept showing up. You kept loving people who did not quite know how to receive it. You kept giving without demanding recognition, and somewhere in the middle of all of that, a quiet exhaustion settled into you, not bitterness. You are not a bitter person, and that itself is something you have every right to be, and you chose not to be. What settled in was something more like a very old tired. The kind of tired that comes from hoping for a long time without a concrete reason to keep hoping, and choosing to keep hoping anyway. I want to say something that might surprise you. That exhaustion is not a sign that you are losing. It is a sign that you have been running a race that required more of you than you knew you had, and you are still in it. You have not stopped. That alone is not nothing. That is, in the most practical sense, everything. Archangel Michael sees all of it, not as a performance review, not as a ledger of what you got right and what you got wrong. He sees it the way you would look at someone you deeply love who has been carrying more than they were designed to carry alone with something close to grief, because he has been watching, and until now, could not speak directly into what was happening. But he can speak now, and the first thing he says is this: heaven does not waste the people who kept showing up. Not one prayer, not one night of endurance, not one morning where you chose to be kind when bitterness would have been easier. None of it was unseen. None of it dissolved into nothing. Every moment of that was being counted toward something you have not yet received the explanation for. That explanation is coming, and it is closer than it has ever been. Here is what Archangel Michael needs you to understand. You are not simply waiting for a breakthrough. You are waiting for a person. And that person is not some distant, abstract promise wrapped in spiritual language. They are real. Somewhere in the world right now, in a specific city, in a specific life, they exist. And they have been carrying an ache they cannot fully explain for longer than either of you knows. This person carries resources, influence, the kind of material stability that removes the daily friction that quietly wears people down over years. But here is what I want you to understand. That is the least interesting thing about them. They have been surrounded by people who wanted what they had. They have learned, slowly and painfully, to recognize that kind of attention. The way someone's eyes change when they see the car, the address, the number. The way conversations have a particular energy when the other person is doing math in their head. They got very good at reading that and very tired of it. What they have been starving for is someone who wants who they are, not what they carry, who they actually are, underneath all of it. And that is something they have almost stopped believing exists. About 48 hours ago, They were sitting alone somewhere, not in distress, not dramatically, just sitting in the quiet of their own space, surrounded by everything the world would call success, and feeling the specific hollowness of a life that has everything and is still waiting for one thing in that moment. They whispered something toward heaven, not a formal prayer, more like a confession, something along the lines of, if this is not real, if the thing I have been searching for does not actually exist, I need to know, because I cannot keep leaving room for something that is never going to arrive. Archangel Michael felt that moment, and he moved. Not slowly, not in the timeless way of divine indifference. He moved with urgency through the kind of channels that are invisible to ordinary perception but very real, to make sure that what connects you to this person does not close before it can open. That is part of why you are here right now, because on one end of a divine connection that has been years in the making, someone almost gave up. And on the other end, that is you. You are the answer to a prayer that was sent from a life you have not entered yet, from a person you have not yet met who has been quietly, honestly, desperately asking heaven for someone real. Let that land. You are not forgotten. You are the reason someone else is still looking. Now here is something most people miss about how this kind of meeting actually arrives. Picture this. You are somewhere ordinary, maybe a place you go often, maybe a place you agreed to show up at without expecting anything from it. You are not performing. You are not networking or trying to make an impression. You are just there, being exactly who you are. And a conversation starts, not dramatically just a conversation, but it runs longer than it should. You glance at the time and are surprised by how much has passed. The other person is not rushing either. Something in the exchange has a quality of attention that is different from the ordinary kind. They are not looking through you at the next thing they need to do. They are actually here, actually listening, actually interested in exactly what you have to say, and you feel not excitement, not quite, something steadier. Something like, I know this feeling. I cannot explain why, but I know this feeling. That is how it arrives. Not with fanfare, not with confirmation from the sky, with warmth and a quality of attention that your spirit will recognize before your mind has processed what it means. When that moment comes, pay attention. But let me tell you something most people misunderstand about divine timing. The delay was not rejection. The delay was not punishment. It was not a sign that you were overlooked, or that the blessing was going to someone more deserving. It was construction, active, intentional, necessary construction. And I want to explain what I mean by that in a way that goes beyond the usual spiritual comfort phrase. Picture this. You are building something, not a small thing, but something that has to hold weight for a long time. You do not rush the foundation. You do not pour concrete and immediately load it with the full structure before it has cured and set. You wait, not because you are indifferent to the outcome, because you understand that what goes up too early collapses under its own weight, and that the extra time you give the foundation is the thing that determines whether the structure stands for years or falls in the first storm. That is what these seasons have been. Every closed door was heaven blocking a path that was not yours. Not because you were not good enough for what was behind it, but because what was behind it was not adequate for where you are going. Every connection that dissolved was a release from something that could not hold the weight of the life you are actually built for. Every season of silence was the cure time, the necessary pause before the structure could be loaded. Archangel Michael says this plainly. The version of you that existed several years ago was not ready to receive what is coming now. Not because of failures, not because of weakness, but because the specific kind of character required the steadiness, the clarity, the inability to be talked out of your own worth had not yet been built. Now, look at what has changed in you. The things that used to knock you sideways no longer do in the same way. The fears that used to speak the loudest in your head have gotten quieter. The need for someone else to confirm your value before you could feel it has loosened. You are less willing to accept what does not honor you, not from anger or bitterness, but from a growing clarity about who you actually are. That clarity did not arrive from a good week. It arrived from years of being tested and remaining. That is not a small thing to carry into a new season. That is the most important thing. And here is something I want you to sit with, because it changes the whole frame. The person coming to you, they need someone who already knows their own worth. Not someone who needs to be convinced of it. Not someone who can be swayed by the weight of what they offer. Someone whose foundation is already set and does not shift under the pressure of someone else's resources or influence. That person is who you have become. It was not who you were before the delay. The delay built the very quality that makes the connection possible. That is why Archangel Michael waited. Not to be cruel, to be precise. Now, here is the part that matters most. And it is the part most messages like this never say. The miracle arriving in your life will not announce itself. Let me say that once more, because it is the thing most people get wrong. When this person enters your life, it will not feel like a movie. There will be no moment where the lighting changes and everyone turns to look. It will feel soft, maybe even ordinary at first, the way the most important moments of your life almost always begin, looking like nothing until you are deep enough inside them to understand what they are. It might be a message that arrives late at night, not urgent in tone, just a message, but when you read it, something in your chest settles in a way you do not expect. Not the quickening of excitement, the opposite arrival. The way something heavy you have been carrying quietly sets itself down. It might be a face you encounter in a place you would not have predicted, and the noise of everything around you goes quiet for a few seconds in a way that is hard to explain afterward. It might be someone in a conversation who references something specific, a detail, a perspective, a way of naming something that connects exactly to a part of your interior life you have never been able to explain to anyone else. And you feel, beneath the surface of the exchange, the low hum of recognition. Pay attention to the quiet moments. The miracle does not arrive loudly. And here is the instruction Archangel Michael is most specific about. When it arrives, do not run, because your first instinct might be exactly that. After everything you have been through, after all the hope you have extended that came back empty, the part of you that learned to keep expectations small to avoid being crushed will want to speak up. It will say, "This is too good. You have been here before. You know how this ends. Do not let yourself fall for this." That voice has served you. It kept you from some damage you did not need. But in this moment, it will be operating on outdated information. It will be applying the lessons of an older version of your life to a new situation that does not follow the same rules. The version of you that needed that protection is not the version standing here now. So when the moment comes, do this one thing. Breathe, be present, speak honestly, do not perform. Do not manage the impression you are making or edit yourself into the version of you that seems safest to present. Let yourself be actually known, not the polished version, not the version you show people before you trust them, because the person coming to you has been surrounded by polished versions their entire life. Managed impressions, careful presentations. The thing they are searching for, the thing they have almost stopped believing exists, is someone who shows up as exactly who they are, without strategy, without apology. That is you, if you let it be. Move into the connection slowly. Not coldly, there is a difference. Cold is protection, slow is presence. Let what is forming take its own shape without forcing a timeline on it. The most real things grow at their own pace. Heaven is not in a hurry, and neither should you be. Let me say one more thing here, because this is the place where many people ruin what was just about to open. Not every person who appears in this window of time is the one. Some doors will open in this season that look like the answer and are actually just tests of your discernment. They will arrive with energy and urgency and the feeling that this must be it, and your job, the new version of you, with the clarity you have built, is to breathe before you decide. Not every open door is yours. The one that is yours will not feel like pressure. It will feel like coming home. There is a difference between excitement that wants you to decide quickly and peace that allows you to decide well. Learn that difference. It will matter. Archangel Michael is not grieving over you anymore. He was, for a long time, the way heaven grieves over someone. It loves deeply who cannot yet see what is being prepared for them, who sits in the dark wondering if the prayers are going anywhere, who gets up every morning and goes through the motion of faith without quite being able to feel it. He heard every single one of those prayers. Not one word rose to silence, and what he wants to leave you with today is not a promise that requires your performance to activate. It is not conditional on how many people you share this with or how many specific declarations you make in the comments. It is simpler and more substantial than that. You were never forgotten. Not in the way that sounds like a comfort phrase, the automatic reassurance offered when there is nothing practical to say. I mean it structurally. There is not a single moment of your life where you were outside of the attention of something greater than yourself. Not the nights that felt most empty, not the mornings you got up with no good reason to, except that you did. Not the prayers that seemed to evaporate the moment they left your lips. Every one of those moments was witnessed, and every one of them built something in you that is still standing. The person coming to you needs everything that was built in those moments. Not the edited version of your story, the actual version. The part you have been protecting. The part you learn to keep behind the version of yourself you present to the world before you trust someone. They are ready to see it, more than ready. They have been surviving for years inside a life that only ever got the edited version of everyone around them. And they are exhausted by it, in a way that money cannot fix and success cannot touch. What they need is real. And real is what you have become. When this message ends, I want you to do something simple. Not a ritual. Not a declaration to the universe. Just this: sit quietly for 30 seconds, not to pray, not to perform intention, just to be still, and let the shift that is already in motion have a moment of your full presence. The miracle is not waiting for you to believe in it loudly enough. It is already moving. You are not generating it by hoping correctly. You are simply aligning with something that has been underway longer than you knew. Then go about your day, stay open, move at the pace of clarity rather than the pace of urgency. Notice the soft moments. Notice the conversations that run long. Notice the quiet arrivals. Archangel Michael says in his final word to you today, the miracle is not approaching. It is already in motion. You are not waiting for something to begin. You are catching up to something that heaven has been preparing ahead of you for a long time. Clearing the path, arranging the meeting, building both of you toward a moment that was written before either of you had language for what you were waiting for. All you have to do is keep walking forward. You were built for this. You were never not chosen. If this message reached you today, and something in it landed not just as emotion, but in the quiet place where truth actually settles, subscribe to this channel. Archangel Michael continues to speak, and the messages that follow this one are already prepared. Stay in the flow of what heaven is releasing. Your life is changing. Walk into it.